Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest online event here at the University of California, Merced. My name is Ricky Hill. I am your e-recruiter here at UC Merced. A big welcome to you today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to have you with us this evening while we do this great presentation for you called Tips on Navigating the Personal Insight Questions. You may have also heard those referred to as the PIQs for Personal Insight Questions. Before we get started, let me give you a couple of quick tips. If you need to adjust your audio settings, you can do that in the lower left corner of your screen. If you'd like to adjust the size of your window, click on View Options in the upper portion of your window. Lastly, and most importantly, we are here to answer your questions tonight. Take full advantage of that Q&A button that you see on your screen. Send in those questions and we will get to those throughout the presentation. We are fully staffed behind the scenes with our content experts, as well as during the end of this program, during a live question and answer session. We are fully staffed behind the scenes, as I said, and we have a very big audience here joining us. So make sure you do get those questions in, and we will get to all of those throughout the evening. Once again, as I said, tonight we are here to talk about tips on navigating the personal insight questions, the PIQs. At this time, it is my great honor to hand things over to my colleague, Juan Carlos.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Juan Carlos Lopez. I'm one of the admissions advisors here at UC Merced. I'm going to pass it on over my other colleague, Iona.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the University of California Personal Insight Questions webinar. My name is Iona Nee, and I am the Assistant Director for Domestic Recruitment with the Undergraduate Office of Admissions. I'm also UC Merced alumna, and I'm happy to share more about how to put your best foot forward as you navigate the personal insight questions as part of the University of California application. Here's an overview of what you should expect from today's webinar. We'll provide an overview of the PIQ basics and know that personal insight questions we will refer to moving forward as PIQ, the acronym. We love acronyms at the University of California. Then we'll also provide an overview of why we require the PIQs. What is the purpose of them in the UC application? Juan Carlos and I will dive into the required personal insight questions. We'll provide tips and tricks on how to navigate them, what to do, what not to do. And then lastly, most importantly, we will answer your questions at the end, both live and in the Q&A function. And with that, let's get started. So the University of California application is just one online application that you submit to all the campuses that you're interested in. And note that the filing period to submit the application is October 1st through November 30th. It is a hard, strict deadline of November 30th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we have an overview here of the spring applications. So note that our campus, UC Merced, is one of the few campuses that actually is open for spring term, but for today, we'll focus on the fall term. And as I shared earlier, it's just one application. Every campus that you apply to in the UC system receives the same exact copy of the application. But note that every campus that you apply to reviews decisions independently, meaning none of our campuses collaborate or communicate on your admissions decision. So there is no hotline for me to call up Juan Carlos and be like, hey, Juan Carlos, what do you think about this student? So know that every campus you apply to, we make decisions independently. And I always tell students, when I'm reviewing your application, I'm going to assume that our campus is your first choice. And keep in mind that there is a fee waiver available in the UC application where you can receive up to 4 campuses covered for free with that fee waiver. Note that you cannot stack or combine fee waivers. So you can only receive up to 1 fee waiver. So it is a $70 fee for US citizens, and it's an $80 fee for non-resident international students. And again, that's a fee per campus that you apply to. And here's a link on how you can access the UC application. And with that, we'll dive into the personal insight questions. So note that the personal insight questions are a required part of the UC application, and they come at the end of the UC application after you report your academic history and activity and awards. And know that for first year freshman applicants, there are 8 questions. However, you only are required to answer 4, no more than 4 and no less than 4. And for our transfer applicants, there is 1 required question that you must respond to. And there are 7 other questions that you can choose to answer for the other 3. So note that for first year freshmen, you're required to answer 4, and same for transfer, but with transfer, you have to answer the required question, and then you can select out of the 7 others to answer those 3 questions you like. Know that there's a 350 word count per response. So there is a maximum word count, 350 words. And we encourage you to maximize that space because the more information you provide, the better we can review you. Think of your application as building blocks. The more examples, the more details, the better we can understand you and your story and experiences. And lastly, all questions have equal value. So truly choose the questions that resonate with you and your experiences, the ones that are most meaningful to what you've completed throughout your high school and or transfer college experience. So there is no better question. Just choose the one that is most relevant to your experiences. So let's start off with, why do we require the personal insight questions? So as I shared earlier, they purposely come at the end of the application. It's meant to summarize all the other sections of the UC application. As readers, we will review your academic history. We'll see how you performed in your coursework. How have you challenged yourself? How rigorous your courses are. And then we'll look at your activities and awards. We'll see what you do outside the classroom setting, within your school environment, your home environment, your work environment. We get to see what you do and how do you spend your time, where your interests are, how have you grown within those interests. And the PIQs, they're meant to further highlight those experiences, both academic and non-academic. They're meant to provide more clarity on your academic performance and what you do outside the classroom. And that is why they purposely come at the end. They're meant to complete the story of who you are as an applicant, and they provide more information on what's important to you, because we can see how you perform in your academics, the courses you take, but the personal insight questions allow us to understand how you think. They allow us to share and understand what's unique from your perspective. I know that the personal insight questions, they're not a make it or break it in your admissions decision, meaning you will not be solely admitted or denied based on the personal insight question responses. They're just meant to complement the other sections of the application. As I shared earlier, they're meant to share out and further highlight those experiences and also those challenges, what you've overcome and what you're most proud of throughout your high school and community college or transfer college experience. And lastly, the personal insight questions are meant to provide further context, because we kind of get a sense, right, of where you go to school, the courses you've taken, how you performed in those courses, what you do, what you're a part of, those activities, what you've been awarded. And the PIQs provide further context. Note that we are not comparing students to student, because we know that your experiences, your opportunities will look much different by each school and by each applicant. We know that a 3.6 GPA at one high school will look much different than a 3.6 GPA at another high school. So that is why we're only reviewing you within the context of what's been available to you. Because as readers, we want to know what's been available to you, how have you taken advantage of those opportunities, and what have you learned about those opportunities. So again, what has been available to you, how have you taken advantage of those opportunities, and what have you learned about those opportunities. And with that, I'll pass it on to Juan Carlos.
Once again, welcome to our webinar tonight, PIQs. As my colleague Iona mentioned to you, the PIQs are designed to really get a sense of who the applicant is. You have included all your work in the application. I like to think that the PIQs is the icing on the cake. These questions are going to give us an in-depth an idea as to who is the applicant. For transfer students, there's a particular question that you must answer. The question basically is asking you, please describe how you prepared for your intended major, including your readiness to succeed in the upper division courses once you enroll at the university. And it doesn't necessarily, it has to go beyond your coursework. It has to be something that you think about how you prepare yourself by taking the coursework and how, or the courses you take in community college, but how that's helped you to really realize that this is the intended major that you want to do once you enter the university. So be mindful of that when you answer these questions. So this is a must answer for all transfer students. And as my colleague Iona mentioned to you, you have other three to choose from the other sections of, or the other questions within the PIQs. For everybody else, incoming first year or freshman, you do have these eight questions, as we already mentioned. They go as follows. Describe an example of leadership experience with you have. Please, this experience with you have positively influenced others, help resolve disputes, or contribute to a group efforts over time. Now, keep in mind that leadership doesn't necessarily occur in the school setting. It could occur away from school. And this is a matter of you going into how you see yourself as a leader, and you got to give us examples on how you brought groups together, or maybe your family. For example, a lot of you who have had a lot of challenges with maybe the past 2 years, you had to be the leader in your household, where you basically, if you're the oldest in the family, you would have to take care of all the responsibilities that your parents had when because they have to go to work. So, for example, you were in charge of making sure that your siblings did their homework, ate, and what have you. So that was your response. A part of top of that, you basically were also in charge of your own academic success, and that's a balance that you basically try to figure out whether that leadership role that you took, or you were kind of forced into that leadership, and that's what I'm talking about. So leadership doesn't necessarily can happen in the classroom setting or at school. It could happen in the household, as an example. And some of you also who may be leaders in clubs or organizations, or leaders in sports or community service, keep in mind that we want to hear about your experiences and how you contributed to the efforts of the group or the community as a whole. But this is something that you should take in consideration. Again, these answers have to be all about you, how you see yourself in that leadership role and how you experience that. It's about me, I. The second question, every person has a creative side, and it can be expressed in many ways: problem solving, original, innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. To describe how you express your creative side. This is kind of one of those questions where basically being creative doesn't necessarily have to be, again, going back to the idea that this is something that you do at school. It could be basically something that you do on your own. Maybe you are a painter. Maybe you are someone who writes poetry. Maybe you are one who writes short stories. Or maybe you're good at origami, something like that. But you express your creative side doing certain things, such as hobbies, that maybe not everybody knows about those hobbies. And tell us how that expresses your creative side. Again, these questions are designed to making sure that we get a sense of who you are as an individual. And when you answer these questions, think about how you see yourself in answering these questions. And one thing that you should know too is that tell students about these questions, you should think about basically asking yourself the question out loud and recording the answer, because you're going to get two different ideas in regards to how to answer the question. Because if you sit down and write your answer, you're going to get a different response if you just basically talk about it. And that's it. The PIQs become more of an interview aspect of you. One thing I also tell students is that the PIQs, the answers, they'll make us laugh, they'll make us cry. But the one thing they'll definitely do is provide us an insight as to who the student is, that icing in the cake. Next slide, please. And of course, as many of you would say, wait a minute, doesn't 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand? It could be. It could be. I know that a lot of you will say, well, but keep in mind that every answer must stand alone. The question number 3, for example, is asking you, what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you developed and demonstrated the talent over time? This is something maybe that you decided to play an instrument, for example, or learn how to sew, and then you develop that skill over time. Or maybe not only that, you became a good speaker. You kind of worked on your speeches, or the way you speak, and you work on that, and you develop that. Those are the things that you probably might want to write about. Or maybe something that you do do well in the classroom, maybe like in a math class or a science class, that you do experiments. Again, talent is something that you have to think about, or skills that you learn, or you kind of grew and developed those and you work at it. Or simple as this, somebody who maybe plays sports, who wants to learn a skill, and you constantly work on it because you want to get better at it. You explain that journey, and you develop and you demonstrate how that has helped you. Again, that's an analogy of sports, but it could be in any aspect of it. It could be, again, you writing something, or you basically maybe climbing something, or going on a trip or something like that. But this is something that you start thinking about, how you see yourself in that talent, and how you build that skill, and how that's helped you develop and demonstrate, and how that you develop that over time, which I think it's really a good thing. The fourth question is asking you to describe how you've taken advantage of significant educational opportunity or work to overcome educational barriers. Now, keep in mind that this question could be addressed as what programs do you have on campus that you took advantage of? For example, some of you might say, I'm part of Avid, I'm part of Trio, the Talent Search or Upper Bound. These are a great educational opportunities. Or you could say, I've taken advantage of going to a community and taking extra courses there, or dual enrollment. Or if you feel like you're the type of person that you have been challenged because of your settings, or because you don't have a lot of resources, and maybe your educational barrier, and you fought through to making sure that you received enough resources to put you where you are today. Again, this is all about you and nobody else, because a lot of you have a story to tell, a lot of you have good information to give us, and you have to focus on yourself. And many times or another, a lot of students have the tendency not to, or afraid not to write about themselves. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we have as human beings. But this is a good time for you to start thinking about how you as an individual can really tell us about who you are through these questions. Okay. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Iona.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. So for our first-year freshman applicants and transfer applicants, PIQ number 5 is another option for you, and that is describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? So know that number 5 is a two-part question. We're asking you to share the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you've taken to overcome this challenge. How have you persevered? And note that this could be a challenge that you're still overcoming. It's okay if you haven't already overcame it. If this is a challenge you're still facing, that is totally fine to share out about it. But most importantly, we want to know how this affected your academic achievement. So do not forget to make that connection with due to this challenge, and know that this challenge could be either positive or negative. It doesn't necessarily need to be in your school environment. It could be at home, it could be in your community, it could be at work. As long as you share out how this challenge affected your academic achievement. And include a lot of concrete examples and outcomes and results. How did it impact your ability to perform academically? And we do encourage you to keep your experiences relevant. So for our high school applicants from 9th grade and onwards, and for our transfer applicants during your college experience. And if your challenge is prior to high school or prior to your college experience, definitely share out why it is relevant today. Make those parallels and connections. So again, for PIQ number 5, please be sure to share out how you've overcome this challenge, or maybe how you're still overcoming it, but most importantly, how it impacted your academic achievement, either positive or negative. PIQ number 6. Know that this PIQ number 6, think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside and or outside of the classroom. That this PIQ is only available to first-year freshman applicants. So for PIQ number 6, we do encourage you to think about the A through G subject requirements and think about a course that is related to the A through Gs. And ultimately, how have you furthered your interest? Did you make an effort to take more rigorous courses at your high school? Did you take AP, advanced placement, or college courses to further your interest? Or maybe you decide to join a club or organization at your high school to get involved. Maybe you're interested in physics and there's a STEM club. So you made an effort to get involved to see what types of opportunities for you to learn more about physics to further that interest. Or maybe you saw that your local university or community college was offering a summer program for high school students. So you made an effort to apply and be part of that summer program. That's another area for you to further your interest. Or maybe it's just you simply spending your time researching online more about this topic, getting involved, maybe attending Khan Academy, creating YouTube videos, watching documentaries. What we're ultimately looking for is how have you furthered your interest either inside and or outside the classroom? And be sure to provide those outcomes and results. Like I shared earlier, those 3 questions: what was available to you? How have you taken advantage of those opportunities? And what have you learned for those opportunities? So for PIQ number 6, share out the academic subject. How did you further the interest? Include those outcomes. And because of your interest, what are the results? And note that it's okay if this subject does not relate to your intended major. Students always ask, well, what if I'm looking to apply to computer science, but I share out about my experiences in art? that's totally fine. As Juan Carlos has shared earlier, the PIQs are only here to benefit you. They're only here to add value. As I shared, the PIQs are not meant to hurt you. We are trying to find ways to say yes. We are trying to find ways to admit you in the UC application. So for PIQ number 7, what have you done to make your school or your community a better place? This is one of my favorite questions because we're ultimately asking, what problem or issue did you see in your school or community, and how did you go about resolving that issue? And community is subjective. That could be your circle of friends. That could be your home environment. That could be your work environment. You want to share out, what did you see that was an issue, and how did you go about making it a better place? What were the outcomes and results? What actions did you personally take to make your school or your community a better place? And that's, again, example, share out what the issue was. What was your role? And again, they're called personal for a reason. They're about you. So make sure to use a lot of I in my statements. Keep yourself at the center of your responses. Be sure to share out, what was your role? What did you personally do? What were your actions to make your community or school a better place? And what were those outcomes and results? Because of your actions, what came about from this? PIQ question number 8. Beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you stand out as a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? Number 8, what we like to say, is a free-for-all. If you have an experience, you're not sure where to add it in questions PIQ 1 through 7, number 8 is a great place. If you're not sure if it's related to talent or academic subjects, but you for sure know that you want the readers to be aware of this experience, then definitely add it in PIQ number 8. But keep in mind, PIQ number 8 is not meant for you to summarize everything you've already mentioned in the UC application. The PIQs are meant for you to further highlight examples and experiences, and also mention any topics that you weren't sure where to put it in the application. So again, what we want to know is, what have you done throughout your academic and non-academic experiences, and what do you hope to contribute to the University of California? And with that, we'll dive into some tips and tricks, as Juan Carlos and I have already shared some. So again, they're called personal for a reason, right? You should be at the center of your responses. You should be at the center of the narrative. So that is why we encourage you to use a lot of I and my statements. Many students will focus on how much they love their dog or their grandma, but we're not admitting your dog or your grandma, we're admitting you. So as you begin to draft and proofread your responses, ask yourself, am I at the center? Do I mention my role, the actions I've taken? Do I mention a lot of my outcomes and my results? And again, it's an opportunity for you to provide more information, more context that we did not get anywhere else in the application. It's meant for you to summarize your story, your experiences, but also further highlight those experiences. Because like I shared earlier, we will look at your academic history, your activities and awards. We will notice trends in your grades. If I see that you're doing really well, you have a lot of A's and B's, and all of a sudden there are C's and D's, as a reader, I want to know why, and I'm hoping you'll tell us why. And the personal insight questions is an area that you can further highlight and clarify what was going on in your academic history. And we know that the pandemic has been challenging for everybody. So this is another area for you to highlight any challenges that you faced and you've overcome or still overcoming in the personal insight questions. When we say use your own natural voice when writing, that means be authentic, use your own vernacular, your own prose. Don't feel compelled or pressured to have a thesaurus next to you to sound eloquent or sophisticated. We encourage you to, again, use your own vernacular, your own daily voice, but be mindful and don't use a lot of slang, because our readers will range in age and gender. So we might not know what some of that current slang is, and nor do we have time to research what the slang terms mean. So do keep it in a sense where it's understandable by everyone. And most importantly, we are reviewing for content. That's it. Your experiences, both academic and non-academic. We are not reviewing for grammar or writing style. We do not care about writing structure. That's why this is not an essay. This is the opposite of that. And Juan Carlos will talk more about what that means when we say it is not an essay. So treat this as a written interview. You literally want to write out your responses as if I'm the reader sitting across the table from you, asking you these questions. So when we ask you, Describe your creative side. How would you respond? You would not respond with boom, boom, boom. I'm running through the halls. My heart is pumping, sweat dripping down my face. I run into the band room, pick up the cello. We don't need any of that creative writing. We're not looking for that writing style. You honestly want to respond with, I express my creative side through singing. And then that's where you'll provide those concrete details, those examples. How do you express singing? Have you been recognized for your singing talent? What have you learned about yourself? What were those outcomes and results? So again, treat this as if you're in an interview, and that's how you want to go about your application. This is why you want to boast about yourself. You truly want to highlight yourself. I know many of us come from humble backgrounds, but we unfortunately do not get to meet you. We don't get to interview you. The UC application is a purely self-reported application. You're not able to attach transcripts or letters of recommendation to the application. So this is why you want to be your best advocate. You truly are your best advocate in the application. So unfortunately, since you cannot add in letters of recommendation, you want to articulate that information in the application through several areas, such as the personal insight questions. We also encourage you to receive feedback from folks who may not know you quite well. For example, if you ask your best friend or a family member who knows you quite well, and they review your PIQ responses, they may be able to fill in the blanks and where you're quite vague. They may be able to say, oh, I know what they meant by that, because they know you quite well. Whereas if you ask someone who does not know you quite well and they review your responses, they will say, what do you mean by this? This is actually a little too vague. Maybe you need to clarify further in this section of your response. And as we shared a lot, give details and specific examples, meaning share out what your experiences are by including those outcomes and results. What was your role? What did you achieve? And what were the impacts of what you've done? And remember, there is no best or perfect response because the PIQs are only here to add value. That is it. They're here to complement the other sections of the application. They're meant to summarize the story of who you are. And lastly, avoid repetition, meaning we want to get a well-rounded idea of who you are as an applicant. So keep in mind that we would like for you to share out different experiences for your 4 PIQ responses to give new information that we wouldn't find anywhere else in the application. And with that, I'll pass it on to Juan Carlos to share more about what not to do in the personal insight questions.
All righty then. So things to avoid when answering these questions. Don't feel like you have to use every word. Don't talk about just one campus. I always suggest the students think about when they want to write about a campus, think about maybe just writing about, I always want to be a student at the UC campus. Maybe that's more appropriate. Acronyms, please don't use them. Try to be, again, we want to make sure that we understand the application and we understand who you are as an individual. Avoid quotes, avoid lyrics. That's something that we're not looking for because we don't want to make sure that we basically don't want to go into that because that also takes away from your thought. It takes away from what you really want to tell us about yourself. So this thing just basically becomes a extra words that you don't necessarily need. Also, response focus on story or setting scenes. Focus on how they impacted you. These things that you've experienced in your life. And when you do that, it gives you more, it gives us an understanding and it gives us more an impact as to the individual. Again, the content of the answer is very important because you're clearing us to the question, whatever question you may answer, okay? Again, this is not a writing assignment, so don't be as creative. For example, I had a student 1 year who started to answer the question about a challenge that they had in their life and how they overcame that. The student basically went on saying, as the plane landed at the airport and the door opened wide, the fresh air of the ocean air hit my face as I ran into the corridor. Those are the things we don't really want to hear. And the biggest challenge that individual was talking about is learning English coming to this country. That student should focus on learning English and how the journey of learning English was to that individual and how they overcame that. That's an example of what not to do and something that the student should focus on. And keep in mind too, as my colleague Iona would tell you, is that answering these questions, you could also have a missed opportunity for you to really tell us about yourself. And again, it's all about you, okay? This is not a writing assignment nor an essay. And we're not looking to see whether you know how to use the thesaurus or big SAT words. We're not looking for that, okay? And keep in mind that you have the opportunities to give us more after you answer these questions, okay? In the additional comments after you have completed your PIQs, next slide, please, is where you basically get to be more creative in that sense. You have, and this is very important for a lot of you. Once again, I want to remind you that the application is set up to gather a lot of information from you that will make your, you know, as Iona spoke to you, you are your own advocate that would help us understand from your academic, maybe not, I don't want to say failures, but your struggles. For example, maybe you were planning to get an A in a certain class and all of a sudden you got a B, and because of certain circumstances that occur in your life, explain that. That becomes an important value for us and for you, again, adding more an insight as to who the applicant is. And we want to make sure that we get that information, okay? Now, also, at the end of, if you feel like the PIQs are not necessarily, what would I say, it's not necessarily enough for you to explain about certain things, in additional comments is a section where you basically get to write about anything you feel that is not part of the PIQ that we should know extra about you, okay? For example, we say changes in the family circumstances, you see organizations that interest students, how students plan to engage with, once they get admitted to the UC, or any added contents that the application will be early in the application. Again, 500 words. This is where you actually get to be creative. You get to tell us. As an example too, a lot of students, what they've done in the past, I'm not saying that you should do this, in the additional comments, a lot of students also include their YouTube links. Students are dancing, singing, acting, doing tricks, and that's perfectly fine. Again, one thing is this is free, a free form of you expressing yourself and giving us a little bit more of who you are as an individual. And that becomes a value for us as a University of California, and as a reader, that will give us a better insight as to who the student is in general. And that for us is very important for that matter. So utilize the application as an application that's going to tell us more information about you through your activities, through your academics, and explaining your academics, because maybe there's some things that you were really wanting to do better and you explain that, or even through your activities and miss opportunities as well. You got to make sure that you understand and explaining these things in your activities. But the most important part of the application, not the most important, but the other important part of the application is your PIQs. And this is something that is going to add value to you as an individual that is applying to the University of California, okay? Now, the next thing we're going to go over is basically, we're going to talk about the next coming up events for webinars. And this is something that we're going to be doing for the rest of November. For those of you who are interested in joining us in some of these webinars from the application webinars, which are going to occur November 7th, which November 21st and November 28th. Usually they're at 7 p.m. And then we're going to have advising for applications as well, November 14th, November 16th, from 4 to 6. You'll be talking to some of our experts in the office, some of the advisors as well. So give you the best advice in regards to whatever questions you may have. And then, of course, just to make sure that we provide you with a lot of resource and support, we do have a last minute UC application assistance on November 22nd from 6 to 9 and November 29 from 6 to 9 as well. So again, we want to provide you with a lot of support and resources so that you'll be able to get a lot of advice from our office to help you in that process, to help you not eliminate, but feel that you know your anxiety. We want to make sure we help you with that. And of course, we also invite you, next slide please, to experience our campus. So we do have, want to make sure that you ideas to who we are as a campus. First year and transfers professors are invited to participate in the year's experience UC Merced events. During this experience, UC Merced will have an opportunity to enjoy classroom experience, dine with the pavilion at lunch, receive a campus tour, or explore UC Merced. November 1 through the 18th, UC Merced Welcome Center, and the admissions at ucmerced.edu experience. You go to that link, and for more information, you contact Juan Roman which his email is right there. We also offer guided tours as well, live guided tours and self-guided tours. Once again, please join us to come out and enjoy our campus, see how beautiful the campus is and how fast it's growing. And also at the same time, we want to provide you with information in regards to our office information. If you need to contact us, this is our contact information. We want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. And if you have any further questions, our contact information is there, including our phone number.
Thank you so much, Juan Carlos and Iona, for that fantastic presentation. As always, super informative. I know that you are getting to all those questions behind the scenes as well, and I can still see quite a few that we are ready to get to right now. Before we do, though, I do just want to echo what Juan Carlos had just mentioned. This screen that you see in front of you, this would be a great screen to first scan that QR code, or just simply take a quick screenshot or use your smartphone and get a photo of that for future reference. It has all of the important information, email address, phone number, address if you'd like to come take a tour, as well as all of our social media channels. The newest one that we have is TikTok. So we have finally joined the world of TikTok. It's the newest one that we've added to our social media family. Please take a look there. We are running contests at different times, and we are dropping videos left and right to give you an insight into our beautiful campus. All right, so moving right along, a question that has come in. Could we go over question number 7? And tell them a little bit about what we are looking for that question.
So question number 7, or PIQ number 7, is what have you done to make your school or your community a better place? And ultimately, what we're asking is, what kind of impact or role did you have in helping your community? And community is subjective. That could be your circle of friends, that could be your club, that could be your sports team, your work environment, or home environment. I always encourage students to frame it like this. What issue or problem did you see within your community or school? And how did you go about improving it, making it a better place? And again, focus on yourself and your role, the actions you've taken to making it a better place. And it's okay if you're currently making it a better place, like you have yet to see the actions and results and the outcomes. I should say the outcomes and results. So again, what issue did you see within your school or community? What were your actions to make it a better place? So focus again on your role, your actions, outcomes, and results.
Very good.
I can give an example. So many students are part of the beach cleanup. They could say, we've noticed that during the pandemic, the trash at the beach has risen by 20%. And my club made an effort to host monthly beach cleanups. And because of our efforts, we decreased the trash by over 25%. So that's what we mean by what was the problem or issue and how did you go about resolving it?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Iona. Our next question, if we talk about an activity or community service, one of the PIQs, are we suggesting that they then not list that same activity or community within that next section of the application, the activity section?
Not at all. They can definitely list that in the activities and awards section under community service volunteer work. That's totally fine to list it there. What the PIQs are meant for is for them to further highlight their involvement in that community service project. Another
good example of that with students either are members of clubs or organizations, or even sports. The student might say, I was co-captain of the football team, for example. And then they might kind of go into the leadership and how they develop the leadership while playing football as a team member. Those are the kinds of things that you can expand on that, explain how that worked to your advantage in that sense.
Perfect responses. Thank you both so much. So now we have someone asking us, if I have already submitted my application and if I need to change my major at the UCs that they applied to, how are they able to do that?
Some campuses will allow you to change the majors, but you have to contact that campus that you applied before you even submit your SIR, but you got to go through a process. You have to go through the website, and there's usually a link there where you basically ask that you change your major. At the same time, it only goes to those individuals who have already committed to that campus as well. So you can't do it before. You have to do it once you commit to a campus.
Very good. And then I've seen a few questions come in that do mention the pandemic time period. So I'll kind of just summarize all of them into one, and hopefully we can answer a lot of them at one time. So if someone did face some type of challenge, as many people did during the pandemic, and that is still somewhat going on as well, if they're either have already overcome a challenge or they're continuously still working through that and it's related to the pandemic, should they mention that in one particular PIQ, or is there a specific way that that would show up more significant for this process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's actually a lot of areas for you to share out how the pandemic has impacted you and your achievement, both academic and non-academic. The additional comments is an area that you can share out. If you found that the pandemic, especially virtual learning, impacted your academics, we encourage you to share that in the additional comment section that comes after the academics. But if you've also found that the pandemic has impacted your ability to get involved, because we know that we've all had to been at home during the pandemic, so you didn't necessarily have team practice and gatherings for your clubs and organizations. So you can mention that the impacts of COVID, the pandemic, in the additional comments that come after the PIQs. Specifically PIQ number 5, we do ask about a significant challenge that you're currently facing or have faced and how you're overcoming it, and how it ties to your academic achievement. That could be used, but ultimately there are many areas for you to share out the impacts of COVID. And we do encourage you, if it has had a big impact on your achievements, both academically and non-academically, definitely list it in the application. And note that we are required to read everything from top to bottom. No decision can be made without a full review of your application. And many campuses do review your application multiple times. So I always encourage you to just put everything. Think of your application as building blocks. The more details, the more information you provide, the better we can review you. I tell students, you get your money's worth when you apply to the University of California, because everything is read top to bottom before a decision can be made.
Absolutely. All right. So the next question, in the application advising sessions, can someone attend that and actually have their PIQs read by someone and get instant feedback?
Yes, we can. Just keep in mind also that because of limited time, we want to make sure that we really address other students' concern. We can read them, but keep in mind that we're not going to be there sitting there and correcting everything. We'll probably just read them and give you an idea whether you're on the right direction or you need to work on certain areas of your answer in order for us. And so be mindful of that too as well. Okay.
Very good. And now we'd like to move on to prompt number 6. So for PIQ number 6, are we allowed to write about a language that they had taken outside of school?
That's a great question. Yes. Because the language relates to one of the A through G areas in academic subject, then yes, by all means, they can definitely share out how they further their interest outside the classroom setting with the language they've taken outside of school. Very much so.
Very good. Is it okay if I mention wanting to be a pre-med student and going into the medical field in the additional comments or the PIQ sections, even if I'm choosing to become a social science major?
Again, the information that you provide us, let me give you this example. If you go to an interview and the interviewer asks you, tell us about yourself, then the student has all the power, or the interviewer or the interviewee has all the power to decide what information they want to provide us, right? Once the interviewee asks, what do you want to know about me? Then hands off, because then the interviewer will say, well, I want to know about this. The PIQs are basically designed to allow the student to tell us what we should know about you in general, not necessarily what we're asking what particular things we want to know about you. So when answering those questions, you got to think about, where does this fit in? If it means that you're going to do the additional comments, and create a kind of a story, but a clarity on your answer, then so be it. But keep in mind that all the information that you providing us is based on what information you want to give us, because that's more important to us and more value that allows us to really think about the student who's really applying to our campuses.
Very good. And do the PIQ responses all need to be narrative focused?
Great question, Ricky. Yes, so we encourage students to keep themselves at the center of the narrative. Again, narrative focus meaning you include a lot of your actions, your outcomes and results, your role. And some students may think of this as more dialogue. If you choose to add dialogue, we encourage you to keep it minimal because we want you to use your own authentic voice, your own words, your own vernacular. And also narrative could be seen as show and tell. So what we say is give us a very brief background. As Juan Carlos said, many students will focus on setting the scene. Keep that minimal. Yes, it's okay to provide some background information, but don't keep that at the focus of the response. Many times students will spend most of the word count on the background, where at the end, the last two sentences actually respond to the PIQ question. So share out a lot of the, share out the details, but also focus more on your role, outcomes, and results. Because of whatever experience, challenge it may have been, focus on the impacts, your role, outcomes, and results.
Fantastic. Does the advice given tonight, does that apply to all UC campuses, and do all UC campuses look for the same things?
We're not looking for anything particular. We're looking for you to have answered the question. And when you answer, keep in mind too that all the information that you provide on the application to whichever campus you send your application to, we're all going to see that same information. And what we're looking for is that you have answered the question, and that the questions revolve around you as the applicant and nothing else. While as my colleague Iona mentioned earlier, as some of you will like to write about your counselors, your parents, and your teachers, while they're not applying to the university, you are, so it has to be all about you.
Perfect, thank you. The next question. We all experience hardships differently, but we may still end up with similar convictions. What's the most effective way to convey how we feel about what we've gone through?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And what's the most effective way to convey how you feel, how you felt having gone through those challenges is the impacts. Include a lot of examples. We always go back to the pandemic because we know that has impacted mostly everyone, right? So when you share out how you felt during the pandemic, include a lot of examples. Because of this, how did that impact your academics or non-academic life? How did that impact your personal achievement? And we always see students share out that it impacted academics because they had only one computer or they had not the best internet. So they had to really share this one laptop with 5 other household members. So because of that, they had to take initiative, go out of their way to go to the local Starbucks to get free internet, better internet than the one they had at home, or they had to find other ways so to get that free internet. So it's more so share out how you felt, how it impacted you, but of course provide examples, those concrete examples, be very straightforward.
Very good. So can I write a creative works essay that I believe kind of pulls everything together for my character and myself as a whole in the additional comments portion of the application, not the PIQs?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You could do that. Again, the additional comments becomes a kind of a free form of expressing yourself and giving us more information about you as the applicant.
Very good. All right, let's see what else we have here. We have so many great questions coming in. Thank you all so much for sending those, and tons are getting answered behind the scenes. Let's see here. Is it possible for you all to give an example of how to start an essay? Do we have a way, like an introduction sentence that maybe we can help them with, or tell them what not to do maybe?
That's a great question, Ricky. And Juan Carlos alluded to that earlier, right? Like there's no perfect algorithm or there's no story that we're necessarily looking for. And when students ask, is there an introduction sentence, like that hook, like we're not looking for a hook. A hook is that first sentence to engage the reader. As I shared earlier, we're required to read everything, top to bottom. What we're looking for is that added value piece. Did I learn more about you that complements the other sections of your application? Did you provide that further information? I know it's the same tips we're giving, but that's really it. There is no like, this is the best response or the best PIQ example. It's more so, I always encourage students, think of the top 4 experiences you've done and that you're most proud of, but also that you've overcome those challenges. Think of those top 4 experiences and what do you want the reader to know about? So, and then there's a lot of questions you can fit into those experiences. So again, what are the most important experiences you've done, the top 4 that you for sure want the admissions office to be aware of, and try and fit that into the PIQs. Because again, there's no better response than others. We're not comparing your response to anyone else. I know you're looking for like, what's the best sentence to start off, but we're not looking for hooks. We'll read everything. We're reading everything top to bottom. It's more so at the end, did I find this student summarize their story, complement the other sections?
Very good. Now, is there a place on the UC application that someone can attach supplemental materials like a research paper, resume, reference letters, things like that?
No. For that, keep in mind that when you are filling out the application, is what we asking you in the application. That's all information that we are required from you. However, some campuses might have a supplemental application. So when you do apply to those campuses with that, make sure that you check your emails to make sure that you receive that supplemental application, because that's an important part of their application process.
Great. And are there certain topics that are deemed by the admissions officers to be overdone? Anything that they should avoid touching on because too many people already have?
Not at all. There is no taboo topic or topic any applicant should avoid. Students are always worried about, if I share something that's been sad, does that look bad? Again, no. Anything that you think has had a huge impact on you, that you feel compelled for the reader, the admissions office to be aware of, add that. Again, there is no taboo topic, no topic you should avoid.
Very good. Now, how big of a weight does a PIQ have, or all of the PIQs have all together combined, compared to an academic transcript? Is there a bigger weight given to the PIQs versus other documents we require?
So note that every campus makes admissions decisions independently, and campuses will review differently. I will focus on how our campus UC Merced reviews. So note that every campus, all UCs, utilize what's called the selection factors. There are 13 different selection factors, also known as comprehensive review. And those factors will range from academic and non-academic factors. And the PIQs derive from all 13 factors. And that is why you get to choose which of the PIQs you respond to. Because if you find that there are some factors like academics, how rigorous your courses are, or your educational prep programs like AVID are more important to you, that's where you can further highlight that in the PIQs. So note that every UC campus utilizes those 13 different selection factors. How we interpret those factors will look differently at each campus. I will say at UC Merced, 70% of our weight, or our review, is weighted on the academic factors, while 30% is based on the non-academic factors. Again, that's solely at UC Merced only. However, the PIQs derive from all factors, right? So that is why we encourage you to take advantage of this section to boast about yourself and highlight which of those factors that resonate with you the most.
Very good. Thank you both so much. We have so many questions that we have addressed here live on screen as well as behind the scenes. I'm glancing at the clock and we're at the end of this event. Where did the time go? We've covered so much great content. But I'd like to just share a little bit more information with you. And as soon as I'm done here, I'll give both Juan Carlos and Iona a moment if there's anything that you'd like to touch on. I do just want to remind everyone that we do have other ways that you can reach us. So I know we've got a lot of questions that we haven't touched on yet, but if you do have something that you'd like to ask us and you don't attend another webinar, we do have contact information that you saw a moment ago. Admissions@ucmerced.edu is one way that you can reach us. We've got websites, all the social media that you saw earlier as well. well. And then you also have your regional admissions officers that you can also reach out to. So depending on where you're located, we do have those regional officers available as well. And you may even see them somewhere on their tours visiting different campuses and different schools. So we're definitely here. This is not the only time that you'll see our faces or have an opportunity to ask your questions. Having said that, I will pass it over to Juan Carlos and Iona if you'd like to give a last word before we do our final wrap up.
Yes, my advice to all of you, please do have your PIQs reviewed by somebody that doesn't know you very well, because that'll give you a sense whether you make sense in those answers. And do please submit your application on time. We wish you the best of luck, and we hope to see your application this fall. Thank you, and have yourself a good night.
And one takeaway is note that the UC Application Center does conduct random verifications on your application, meaning they will conduct review for plagiarism. So I always tell students, don't feel pressured or compelled to have to review your siblings or your friends' PIQ responses if they were admitted to UC, because again, the responses are just there to add value. We're not going to compare responses to anyone else. Don't think that, oh, my neighbor's next door sister or cousin's boyfriend got admitted to this campus and this is their response, so I'm going to use this or use a similar template. Again, there is no format. Definitely do not resort to plagiarism. You should not be losing sleep over the PIQs, because think of them as just short answer questions. Think of it as you speaking with us. We're sitting across the table as a casual conversation, and you just sharing examples. Like you're in that interview, you're highlighting, this is what I'm most proud of, this is what I've overcome, I'm currently overcoming, what I hope to achieve, what I hope to accomplish. And good luck, everyone.
Very good. Thank you once again to Juan Carlos, to Iona, everyone behind the scenes. We've had quite the crew back there getting everything answered behind the scenes. One quick thing, we have recorded this, so we want to make sure that we mention that again. We've dropped into the chat and we can do that again. The quick link for you so you can find that information later on. And as I said earlier, you've already been to the site because you're here tonight. So that's how you got registered for this event. So it'll look very familiar. Instead of a register link, you'll see one that says recording available within the next couple of days. And you can watch this at your leisure. You can fast forward and look at all these great slides again if you'd like a little refresher. Another thing I'd like to mention, and we did talk about this earlier as well, but a quick reminder, and we will drop this link into the chat as well. We have a new program that just started yesterday. It is called Experience UC Merced. So it is running from November 1st through the 18th. It is a fantastic program. If you haven't yet taken a look at that website, please take a moment as soon as we're done here. You will be shocked and amazed at how much we are offering from November 1st through the 18th. You can get registered for different sessions to see the campus and a campus tour. And you will also have a great opportunity at many different times and different days during that time span to actually have some in-classroom experience and observation. Some of the topics that we're offering would be biology, chemistry, English, anthropology, Spanish, and the list goes on. So take a look at that website when you have a chance. Once again, get yourself registered there. You don't want to miss out. If for some reason you don't have a chance to attend Experience UC Merced, we also are offering campus tours 7 days a week. So we are trying to do everything possible to give you the opportunity to step foot on our beautiful campus. It's sustainable, it's high tech, it's beautiful above everything else. And you've seen some of the photos behind us on our backdrops, but nothing is the same as actually coming here in person. So please take a moment, hop onto all these websites, get yourself registered, watch our replays, come and see our campus, get signed up for a program right away. And ultimately, we do have many more events coming up. We definitely want to see you at all of those, either in person or here virtual online. Once again, my name is Ricky Hill. I'm the e-recruiter here. It has been such a pleasure being here with you tonight. Have a wonderful night, everyone. We will see you very soon.